I just set up the Google Hangouts. There's no viewers in it. I don't know if there's people who are gonna need to be in it or.
Who knows? So, where do you want us to project? We have like a small presentation, by the way.
Oh, should you need the projector and all that?
Yeah, that would be.
I mean, the other thing we can put it on the TV since it's not, the TV rolls out. So, because that since it's not a TV.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or your internal pool, I think. Who's next week is that? What do you work at? Okay, or your competition. So I'm actually like they, whatever so much. Yes.
I was at biomedical engineering center last summer, and one of the PhD that I was helping, he was like doing like motion detection with like processes, but he did like image processing. Yeah, with detecting Canadian or like something. But yeah, I didn't really totally understand. I'm doing molecular. I'm doing my inside, but I just haven't got that internship last summer, so I experienced yeah, I got that biomedical. There's actually a lot. I don't know, a lot of stuff that I could use like this mostly are like the sheep and like 3 days. I was helping another researcher who was working on EKG sensor data and like the number of the sensor that needs. So like the size of the device that the patient will have to like carry. Yeah, so instead of like sensors, like some prediction, some machine learning, we could use like almost a half of the sensor. No, I'm not ready for my practical. I think I have one more year on my university. I'm doing I found that these things are very sometimes actually better because you don't have bias. Almost like side, running, like what I said last time.
We're going to be presenting some front row seats right there.
So this is where everyone's hanging? Hey, if anybody, you guys feel, this is where the front row is. So if you guys want to grab chairs, you can sit anywhere you want. If you want to sit at a table, you can. If you want to move up closer, you can grab a chair and move up closer.
Yeah, it's like VIP seats.
So you can bring the chairs up. Don't, it's fine. Yeah, you can use those chairs too. Like, don't be afraid to get as close as possible.
I know you guys got these front row seats, but they're being, you got to put the TV between. The only outlet is right here, so we all have to be back on line for. Yeah,
We're on this side. That's fine. You guys can
yeah,
stay
take a
there.
chair. All right.
All right.
We can make it so everyone. You don't have to tilt it. You can keep it kind of like more this way, right? So that way, because everyone's here, so if anything, it's going to be better. If you have it like that way, like straight, like if we put it in the middle and like everyone should see it. Does that make sense? Like if you put it like this, except for then they
won't see it.
yeah, they might have to move out a little bit. It's like smack it.
6-1. Okay. Go either way. You have to take the laptop here.
That's not my computer. That's what I'm looking at. It stands. So yeah, he's setting up his computer, so you got to give him a second. No, it stands. Hi. Grab a seat anywhere. You can grab a couch if you want.
I'm on.
I just want to let everybody know really quick that the Wi-Fi, you can use either Industrious 2.4 or Industrious 5 or whatever they have on there, any Industrious Wi-Fi. The password for any of them is Hive Office 123. So Hive like a beehive. Hive Office 123. It's all lowercase, and you can just save it because we're going to be doing all the hackathons here. So, and also restrooms are through that door, where the exit is, like past the elevators, on the right-hand side. Women's are down and men's are up. And there's a code to get in. It's written on the wall, so you don't have to remember it. I don't know what the point is of having a code if you're just going to put it there. Has everyone been to the Datathon events at all, like with a workshop, or who has not been to any of the Datathon workshops or open house? Okay. So we could just kind of give you a really quick briefing on like what's happening if you don't already know. So I work with DataPhilly. I'm one of the assistant organizers. I work out of this space too. I work with a company called Candidate. We're a startup, three people. We help people who work in technology find jobs and or love. It's interesting. So it's awesome. I love it. So we work with DataPhilly, and a lot of what we do is like community development. What a lot of we focus on is like bringing people to Philadelphia and then finding them love to keep them here, because people only relocate for jobs or for love. So a lot of it is like economic development, strengthening the community in whatever ways you can. But this project in particular, everyone from DataPhilly kind of wanted to do something that was like a big data hackathon of some sort. Initially, they were throwing around ideas of like just hack nights. But then we decided that we should do something that actually has a purpose, which is when we came up with this idea to have a Datathon that actually fights cancer. Dan will be able to explain a little bit more about his involvement in the project itself. And if you have any questions, ask him.
Or great. Or it's really a community project, so eventually you should be able to ask a lot of people. But I guess we'll begin.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing too, just really quick, I want to add, if you can make it to as many hack nights as you can, that would be awesome, because the hopes for this is it's going to be a continuous project where we actually have some kind of completed application. Nothing's ever complete, but to some extent, where it's actually being able to be utilized by like medical professionals and people who are like dealing with this type of information. And if you have friends that are also interested in it, that you want to bring them and get them involved, I know that we need some people on kind of like maybe the data visualization side, or if you know companies that want to sponsor like some food or something like that. So that would be nice too. And we're also in partnerships with Code for Philly. I don't know if you guys know about Code for Philly. So even if we don't have a hack night that night, but you wanted to go to the Code for Philly, one of the Code for Philly events for their hack nights, you can also work on this project at that event too.
Probably, yeah. If you Does anyone have a guess what the image is?
Was that image?
Yeah.
Well, it looks like a city. It's Philly, Washington.
Philly, yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, these are cancer cells. It's Philly with the style of cancer cells.
Man.
There's a site.
Hence the urgency to cure it.
There's a site with deepart.io that does some like extraction of the style and content from another image, combines it using neural nets.
So these slides are all online also, if you want to follow along.
Yeah, so this is a slides.com/dhimmel, which is DHIMMEL/cognomathon. Cognomathon, COG/dhimmel, DHIMMEL/COGNOMATHON.
He also posted it to the Dataphilly page.
Yeah, it's on the meetup. Okay, so after last week's meetup, which I think we had a lot of fun, there was some confusion over what exactly Project Cognoma is doing. And I thought I would just tell you from a very mechanistic sense what the goal of the project is. The goal is to allow biologists, cancer biologists, to fit machine learning models on cancer data So we'll be working with data from something called the Cancer Genome Atlas, which is a really big NIH-funded project to collect samples and analyze a lot of tumors. So what you end up with from this data set is a big matrix where you have a lot of tumors. So anywhere up to like 15,000 tumors are in this resource. And for each of those tumors, the expression level, or how much of each gene there is in that tumor, is measured. So we end up getting a tumor by gene matrix. Now, because we're doing machine learning, this is what we're using as our predictors. So the predictors or features or X, it goes by a lot of different names. The things we're trying to use to predict are these gene expression values, and what our observations are, or the samples, are these tumors which have been taken from people and then assessed for the expression of all their genes. And so we end up having what's called an outcome, which is for each sample, we have whether the tumor has a certain mutation. And in machine learning speak, that's called status, outcome, response, or usually Y. So what we're trying to do is find patterns here in the gene expression of each sample which predict the mutation status of that sample. And here you can see that the expression patterns do a really good job of predicting the status, or mutation status. So first note that the mutation status is binary. There's like the blue and then there's a yellowish orange. So we'll have a binary mutation status. And we probably will never get anything where the gene expression is so good at predicting the tumor status. So this is kind of like an intro example, just to give you a taste. And so now Greg will talk about why we want to make models that predict mutation status of a tumor from its gene expression.
So a use case, I guess, to make this abstract idea a little bit more concrete.
We have a question. Should we?
Oh, yeah.
You want to wait till the end? Right.
No, do it.
How many pictures we have?
Between 20,000 and 30,000.
So roughly 20,000, 30,000 observations.
Now the observations will be subset probably a lot because certain researchers will only be interested in certain types of cancer. So you may actually get a lot fewer observations.
So this is Robert Alloway. He's a researcher at Dartmouth and one of our collaborators. And he wrote on the GitHub today, actually, a really interesting use case for a cancer biologist. So how, kind of an idea of how we intend cognoma to be used when it's done. So in Robert's case, his lab is really interested in the maintenance of mitochondria in cancer. And so that's a mitochondria. Basically what it does is it produces energy and allows you to do things. And in cancer, oftentimes it's misregulated. So in Robert's lab, they're actually interested in developing a therapeutic that inhibits this process called mitophagy. And sometimes in cancers, the cancer cell itself will degrade its own mitochondria, which isn't a good thing. And there are therapeutics that exist that can prevent this particular event from happening. And usually, because it only affects cancer cells, it's expected to have low toxicity in normal cells. But detecting when a particular patient has this phenotype is difficult. So really what they're interested in is developing a classifier to be able to determine whether or not the patient actually has or will benefit from this particular therapy. So in Robert's lab, they have this a priori gene list that they know is implicated for this particular phenotype. And there are these genes here. So Robert will go to Project Cognoma, input these genes into a query. It will automatically develop a machine learning classifier that will be able to detect if those genes in that pathway are misregulated, or they'll be able to find what we're calling a hidden responder. So in this case, the hidden responder could actually be the pathology of the individual, and we'll be able to determine whether or not it'll be successful to treat them with this particular therapy. But it also could be used for research purposes outside of the human example. So they have cell lines. They want to see if we test their drug in the cell line, will this drug have effect because it's predicted to have response based on the classifier that's out there.
Are they putting just the genes or like the expression value of the genes?
So right now they would just be inputting the genes, and what they would be getting output is the classifier. And so then we give them instructions to apply their classifier to their own data in this case. But they're also interested in is if a classifier can be developed in the first place. So this is like their first stop. They input their gene list, and they say, well, actually, this classifier has good performance. We're able to really have high accuracy in detecting a sample that has deficiencies in this pathway. So then they can invest more time and money into this particular hypothesis. And so that's what we're hoping a researcher does. They want the classifier to use, to be able to classify new samples, and then they also want to be able to see and determine if the classifier is worth pursuing.
You have some questions.
Can you speak up?
Yes, no.
Yeah, so right now, so the question was if the classifier is a yes, no, or something like a continuous variable. So a typical classifier could be, like you said, a yes, no. We would build, so I guess getting into a little more meat of it, we would build, or we would offer the user options about what type of output they want, what type of classifier. If they care about the genes that are involved, then we can do some sort of regularization to show how important each of the weights are, or each of the genes are. Or if they just care yes, no, then we can say that, yeah, we just want yes, no. And then we can give them, we can, in the back end, run like an SVM or something to say, yes, the sample has this particular pathway that's inactivated, and it could be treated by this particular drug.
In a more general sense, the classifier is just a model that takes the gene expression as input and outputs either a probability of being a certain class, or maybe just a binary prediction of which class.
Almost sounds like neural network threshold. Off on that? Or?
That would be one type of classifier.
But it's like all machine learning kind of converges on that idea of how to predict threshold. Or
Possibly, yeah.
anyway, I'm sorry.
Another question.
The gene lessons that you're putting in, would it come from a patient, or would it come from some generic?
So we're developing this to be used by expert cancer biologists that know these gene lists a priori. Or what Dan presented on last week was his PetNets project, which curates gene lists based on any hypothesis. So you could have a query into his system that says, I want all the genes that are involved in this particular drug A, all the genes that this drug interacts with. His network will then generate a list of genes that the cancer biologist can then use. So you don't necessarily have to have expert knowledge, but that's who we're targeting this for.
But so it's nothing that's tailored for a particular patient. Is it?
No, it's trying to be as broad as possible. We're trying to make it the use case as. No, so we'll use the full gene expression matrix to output a single classifier that has the best performance for the given task. So in this case, the task is classifying these genes. Any mutation in these lists of genes, detect it, and our classifier will, and then out. I'm sorry?
You have like 5 genes, so
It'll use, okay.
has like 10,000.
Gene expression is like a systematic measurement that captures a lot more than just, so like PARC2, for example, if that's mutated, it's not going to only affect the expression of PARC2. It's going to affect downstream changes. Like the body responds to a particular mutation in ways that we don't really understand. And gene expression is a summary measurement of how the system responds.
Were you also asking, we have 5 genes, how do we make that into a single outcome? So I think that would be, we would say you have a mutation in any of these genes. So it'd be like an OR situation.
Could I ask you this, maybe a little bit about how the project will allow like this research to discover hidden responders in a way that he or she wouldn't ordinarily be able to set a standard. Yeah, whether it's matter of the size of the data or like that.
Yeah, so the generic answer to that question is biology is complicated. There's a lot of different ways to get at a particular answer. So maybe one of these genes, you can detect it being mutated by just sequencing it, and then when there's enough work that's happened in the past that they know if that gene's mutated, it'll respond to that drug. But in most cases, that's not the case. They need the gene expression measurement to classify that. They don't really understand the mechanism yet, but it still has good performance.
You're going to put genes. We also need to put in the type of genes.
Yes. So the question was is the input just genes, or is the input the type of cancer? So the first, at least in my mind, the first place that the user will go to is the gene list, and then the next option is what samples do you care about? What tissues do you care about? So in this data set, there's 33 different tissues. If they only care about breast cancer, then they have a subset of that to work with. But we found that cancers from across different tissues are more similar than they are different in a lot of cases. So we would build a classifier using the whole set and test performance on breast cancer. So that's kind of the. So
How do you test performance? How do you know whether it's working or whether it's a good work?
yeah, so that goes into the machine learning back end of it.
Let's actually save these questions because we want to have a group today that asks these. So yeah.
All right, so just to make our goals more concrete and to have them written down for everyone to see. Our first goal is our tagline, which is the tagline that's on the GitHub. We want to put machine learning in the hands of cancer biologists. The second goal or value that we have is that this is a community-based project. So we all benefit from the collective experience and expertise in the room. And we're advocates of open science. So all the source code will be open, and we are welcoming to any input and all discussion. Yeah.
The data too?
What's that?
The data too?
Yeah, the data's all open, yeah. Everything's open.
If you start from open data, you'll mention the NIS thing, and then the output is going to be open data that will be published by cognoma.
And then our third goal, and arguably one of the most important, is that everyone here learns something new. So I know nothing about the back end or really the front end. I'm the machine learning and the data guy. So I'm hoping to learn stuff on that side through this project. And we'll be using the most cutting edge technology, hopefully, and encouraging talk between an open collaboration between these groups that Dan is going to talk about.
Okay, so in the last week, we've gotten up and running on GitHub a bit. So we have this repository. If you haven't seen it, you can click on this link. It's under the Cognoma organization, the Cognoma repository, and that's a place for general organization and general issues. One of the issues was to introduce yourself, which I think 29 or 30 of you have done already. So we'll use that. If you say you have a certain skill and we need someone with that skill, we can reach out to you that way. We, in the last week, got a project domain or agreed on one, cognoma.org. We talked a little bit about biological use cases. And then we established contribution guidelines. So just in general, we want to make sure that anyone can participate in the project, even if they can't come to the hack nights. So everything we do, we want it to make it back to the GitHub. So the progress we make tonight, we're going to report it to the GitHub so people who aren't here can engage with that. I guess so far we've been using GitHub issues liberally, so they don't have to be like a bug report. If you have anything you want to discuss, you can just open an issue for it. And we've also adopted a pull request model. So if you want to make changes to the code base, and we hope that you do, obviously, you open what's called a pull request, which is where you submit your changes on GitHub that you want to make. And then other people in the project review it. They look through the code that you're changing, and they give you feedback. They say how they think it potentially could be improved. And then once it's had that peer review and any changes have been made, then it will get accepted into the main repository and become part of the official master branch.
Can I say that?
Yeah.
When it comes to submitting pull requests, I learned from my experience that you need to fork the project in order to do that.
Yeah,
That's
since
a GitHub particular.
yeah, so what you do to submit a pull request is you copy over the entire repository from the Cognoma user in GitHub to your own account.
You have to hit the fork button.
Yes, and then
You want to fork or clone? You want to fork. Cloning. Well, I tried to clone it, and then when
so
I
if you clone directly from,
that's for reading.
you don't have write permission to Cognoma. So you cannot, if you clone it, you won't be able to push.
You actually clone your fork, right?
You clone your fork.
Well, that's right. You clone your fork, but first you have to fork it to your account. Yeah, I know. Right? Clone your fork.
It's complicated. It's
You have two
definitely,
forks. No, basically you need to fork it in order to create something in your own GitHub account, and then you clone that, you make changes, you push it up, and then that allows you to do the pull request.
yeah, so for people who don't know, we potentially could have a little discussion either tonight or another time on how exactly to interface with GitHub. And we've also started establishing component repositories. So like there's one called Django Cognoma, and there's another one called Task Service. And so when we have like a well-defined software component in the project, we'll probably make separate repositories. And for all of those, we're looking for people who can step up and take the lead on those individual repositories. So what are we doing tonight? We're going to break into groups, and each group we've thought up some topics or questions that we want them to answer, but feel free to think up your own questions, or if there are other things that you're curious about or think need to be solved, then by all means go ahead. So you can redefine the groups and add new topics. And at the end of the night, we'd like each group to report on GitHub, just so the progress they made isn't lost. You can file an issue, potentially split it into multiple issues if you think what you've worked on divides cleanly. And we're going to give like short 2 to 3 minute reports from each group on to the rest of the people here. So the possible groups that we thought about were the group for the data, just to talk about what's the current state of the data now and what needs to be done to get it into proper format for machine learning. A machine learning group, a back-end group, a front-end group, a design group, and a community/management group. And like the numbers that are near each other are kind of related, so maybe those groups should sit in close proximity and can have some back and forth. I'm going to go through the groups, and then you can raise your hand if you maybe are interested in that group. Yeah, but don't raise your hand for everyone. Won't make you think you may go to it. So here's the data group. Can't go to every group. Oh, okay.
I can also, we can assign the tables for like, tables or like sitting space for where the groups are.
We should do that. Yeah. So the first group is data group, answering questions like the formatting of the data, preliminary and exploratory analyses, and pre-processing and normalization. The next will be.
You want to ask who's like who?
Oh yeah, the hand
So-
raisers.
Yeah, hand raisers. So who wants to be? Who's in the data group?
You know what? Call that.
Yeah, but this is good to go.
Yeah, we're doing data. The data group.
So I would think that scientists mostly would be when we go to data group.
And people who
Oh,
are
you,
like
we have a
specialists.
proposal to go through everything and then ask what group you want to be in,
Yeah.
which makes
Okay,
sense.
that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can.
Yeah,
you should feel like you're stuck in the
It's non-binding.
Yeah, non-binding. You don't have to prove your blood.
So then we have the machine learning group, which looking at algorithms, looking at the benefits and drawbacks of different algorithms, finding the ones that will work with the sample size and feature numbers that we expect to have, and then questions like you were asking about how should we evaluate performance. Then we'll have the backend group who will look into, I don't know why this isn't showing up, but there's a few issues on GitHub that this group should familiarize themselves with. What are the technologies that should be used, and how should we set up and coordinate this and build the whole backend? Oh, I see what happened. Then we'll have the front-end group about what technologies the front-end should use, designing JavaScript web app, and a GUI query builder for the network, so biologists can identify a set of genes they're interested in without having to type cipher like many of you did last week. And then finally, a design group, which some of these got short because I don't really know anything about design or front-end. It's like project logos, and then maybe user experience, homepage. One discussion on the GitHub was, is there a user-friendly way to do this without making people log in? Like, can we have accounts without having to have passwords, stuff like that. And then finally, community management. How are we running the community properly? How do we get more people involved? How do we make sure everyone learns? Those kind of issues, product management, how do we coordinate that effort? So, raise your hand. I guess you can vote for, let's say, 2 things. Okay.
Because data and machine learning are very closely related. You can't decide on machine learning without knowing much about data. So
Yeah.
those who are specific
They are, yeah.
yeah, so
The data in the back end are going to be similar to the data model.
Well, there's going to need to be communication between the groups, and then you refine those synergies.
I think this is more about getting the data, cleaning it.
Yeah. That's what I was actually gonna say. So maybe people who have like industry experience too, that could also be really beneficial. So like if you're working in the sciences space.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of the data group as a lot of data processing. So like if you use applications like pandas in Python or dplyr or tidyr in R, that's what I was more thinking about, but, and a little bit of licensing work and making sure the licensing is all good on the data.
I think also for this, if you join the data group, you should become an expert about the data, like how it was generated, what the tissues are, what the data looks like. I think there's stuff to this that could be separate.
So did you say you should become an expert?
Yeah, that's another component would be, I guess, preliminary exploratory analyses of the data, which will help the machine learning group, but
Right, but it's not tied. So like if you're just interested in machine learning, don't raise your hand for that one, right?
yes.
Like it could be, if you're interested in both, awesome, but you know.
Okay, so hand raisers for data.
So we have 3, 9, 10, 12. Oh my God, it's like everyone. Okay, well everyone, this is just one group.
Hand raisers for machine learning.
And again, it's everyone.
Back end.
Okay.
Front end.
I'm going to work on getting us some more front end. I'm going to work on getting us some more front end people. I'm just going to tell you guys. I introduced you to my friend
They're
earlier.
going to be the rock stars of the group.
And I have
There's gonna
UX.
be
I have some
fewer-
UX friends too that I want to try to get on board. So.
Design.
Oh, that's it.
I
That's
try to get someone.
the thing. We have nobody raising their hand for design.
All right, so here's the
That's an
deal. Everybody has to bring a friend, and
Yeah.
a front end developer or designer.
We gotta find
Should, for tonight, should we merge these 2 groups, front end and design?
I would say, yeah, really, there's no need for
Okay.
a separate group.
Okay.
What
And
if you
then-
want to like learn about some front end stuff or something?
No, that would be
back
cool.
end?
That's a good reason to join the group.
Yeah, that's a great reason. Hopefully there's enough people here to teach.
I mean,
design is something more artistic, right?
Yeah.
No code.
We need some.
Well, there's also
the
science to it,
front end
too.
JavaScript is still a technologist, not a great
Yeah.
designer. So you need something to work.
yeah, the development and the design I think are pretty different.
You're not
Spoken by somebody who doesn't appreciate designers.
Okay, and now anyone interested in community product management? Okay,
Can I ask that you move the data licensing to the community?
okay.
It just seems like more of a management function.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, it is. Pull request accepted.
You didn't forget.
And you're gonna clone it and then forget. Okay, so I think that maybe we should do 2 big groups and then a couple other smaller groups, right? So we have like the data and the machine learning are the 2 biggest ones. And then we have the backend group, which is probably a little smaller. I think we have like 7 or 8 people for that.
Yeah, that's why people raise their hand too.
For 2, yeah. For data, we had a big group for data, big group for machine learning. I think they kind of went hand in hand.
Can I recommend amongst all these people that are interested in both data and machine is that you kind of switch back and forth, but don't feel like you're tied down. Kind of just go where you feel like you're needed.
Another thing too is that maybe it would make sense to kind of, if we have the big groups and they're kind of joined hand in hand, maybe it would make sense to focus on one for this hack night, and then the next one focus on something a little bit different or kind of like expanding on that.
I would almost think machine learning to be merged into one. Kind of
Yeah.
Do people,
Yeah, but like, I think the industry experience is also like, the industry knowledge is also like really important on like how you're reading data and what you're looking for and things like that, right? I'm assuming. You tell me.
you make a quiz for face everything.
Do you want to
Yeah,
put
it
it together?
might actually make sense to join the 2 groups, because the folks that are going to be more focused on one or the other are probably just going to gravitate towards those tasks in the group. It's probably good to have the group.
okay, so we can merge.
You can break out, then you can have all convene midway and then break out.
Yeah, so what
That's a
we'll do
good
is
idea.
we'll have data and machine learning meet together, and then that group can delegate and break out anytime tonight if they want.
Like what I was thinking, maybe like the data, okay, I can have data people that have machine learning or vice versa, but you may want to have the data people kind of be in one breakout group, kind of identifying what the issue would be, even though they know if you go to machine learning people identify the issues, they include it in front and back end, and then point a leader, and then all reconvene and then try to resolve it architecture, because there might be some front issues that can impact the data machine language and vice versa, so tools may be more amenable to machine language. So I think like a breakout and then a reconvene, and another breakout. Just
You
kind of-
want to reconvene in the middle.
Yeah, and that way, you know.
Yeah, I think
Because there may
maintaining
be issues at the
communication.
back end and front end can impact on the data too, is that right?
You can
Yeah,
also have regular
Sure,
stand-ups too, every half.
The front end is BI, certain BI platforms work with certain data structures, I don't know if you're looking at.
okay, so let's potentially do a midway report, like reconvene halfway through, and see if things are working, if they're not working, or they want.
Would anyone be interested in working on like a Google Doc together and having different sections so you can see how other people's answer like little things?
Okay, I like that idea.
Google Docs are great.
Because like
Yeah.
with data issues and stuff, it's good, but it's not real time.
Okay,
I just have one suggestion. During everything, it's almost like data component. Everything is dependent on whether it's machine learning, front end, or back end. So I don't know how many people have come here earlier and have good details about the data. Maybe one thing would be like, one might just focus only on the data, give people all the details as much as possible. So people have them. Then you do the breakout session, everybody has a base knowledge. Then you can start going and working on machine learning, when it's on the back end front end. Without knowing the
Yeah.
basic, everybody's just floundering in it. Right?
so your proposal is tonight to only work on data.
Well,
Just
No, I think-
Somebody to give details of the data.
Yeah, I mean, is there anybody here that has like actual industry knowledge at all, like who's studying? No, like, I mean, industry in terms of like the cancer, genomics, cells, or anything like that. Does anybody have any?
We have biological scientists here.
Okay,
Greg
Yeah, I
and
mean,
I
that
have
could
some
be-
familiarity. I've never,
okay. Yeah, I think maybe the maintaining that communication so everyone's kind of understands all of it, like going through the project.
Yeah,
I think
just
that's
look at the basic.
I think-
Data is the most important, the domain,
Right.
combine that if somebody can talk about it or just discuss that would be very helpful. People have a base knowledge, you know, that.
I do think it's a good idea to provide the back end people from that group because that group has a lot of knowledge and industry knowledge, and they can talk about a lot of things and they have conclusions.
Right.
In the back end group, they need to work on infrastructure for the the deployment of the whole back end thing, and then maybe we can reconvene and we can see what we're learning.
Yeah, so I'm just going to make the decision that we have to break out into these groups because we're not prepared for something else. But we can
We can adjust.
we can adjust. Yeah, and we can merge data and machine learning if people think that's a good idea.
I think also when you're in your groups, you can identify what you don't know, and then when you can come back from those groups saying, all right, we don't know this, and then putting all that together.
And we will do the Google Doc so people can see the process. I'll set that up now.
I can also give like a 2-minute intro to what the data is. People are interested in that.
Okay, you want to do that now?
So this is RNA-seq data. It's RNA sequencing. So what people do is you take a tumor and you put the tumor in a dish, you grind it up, and then you measure what's called RNA. So I gave a quick intro to what RNA was at the last meetup. For people who weren't there, it's the intermediary between DNA sequence, which is then transcribed into RNA, which is then translated into protein, which is what actually is functioning in the cell, protein. Well, actually, there's lots more going on, but simplistically, the RNA is what we're measuring. And so the data is the expression value of that particular RNA at a single time point for that tumor. And so the actual RNA sequencer will then read the base pairs of the particular RNA and then map it to a transcriptome reference, which is all known sequences of RNA. And then you do through some normalization steps, you get to the point where you can have an actual number that says that this is how frequent this particular gene is expressed in the given cell.
But we're just working with the counts, right? Like we are trying to realign or.
No, it's all processed already, ready to go. Like it's in the matrix form already. Yeah. It's actually pretty clean compared to other things that I've worked with. Yeah, I mean, there are some issues with it, but
Is it machine learning?
it's machine learning. It's all machine learning. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So one of the benefits of RNA-seq is there's a high dynamic range, and you can have 0. So you can have a gene that's expressed not at all in a cell, but then you can also have genes that are expressed like on the orders, like.
But they're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah, it's all the same type of units. It's all positive numbers between 0 and 300, but that's in the long tail.
And then put a group over there for the back end engineers.
So a sample will be measured, like if you picture a matrix, a sample are the columns, and then the genes are the rows, and every sample is measured by 20,000 genes.
Every sample is 20,000.
Yes.
Now, what if they again?
Yeah. Data machine.
For the whole thing.
No. I guess generally what's done is you don't throw anything out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So-
now, we have to make that
Yes. Yeah. So those are the types of decisions that we would talk about in the breakouts. I guess more specifically.
Typically, how many samples are you working with?
So the largest sample set in TCGA is breast cancer, and that's 1,200 tumors.
Okay.
But there's 33 different tissues, and most of them have on the order of 400 to 500. They're all human subjects. Yeah. And we all sometimes. So accompanying the data is clinical data, which we know if the sample's alive or not. We know how long until they died, and we also know male or female. And we could probably also get some more covariates that way.
You said whether the sample is black or not.
The patient, yes.
You also know
Good question.
We do. So I put a link to the data there. I don't think that information is there, but we can get it. That's publicly available. Yeah. And almost always they died of the cancer.
Okay, so
Shall we?
There are data for health. It's not in the one that I see.
How do you
okay, so if you go here, you can get to that Google Doc, which was suggested. It is on the slides in the last slide, and you can just click on that link, and anyone should be able to edit. So what we're going to do is break out or put these two tables together.
Yeah, we're gonna flip it so it'll be like a big square.
How about getting on to refresh?
So we might have to tilt that table this way, and we can put it in a big square, and everyone can just sit around it. And this will be the data machine learning team. If we need, we might need one more table. Actually, it might need to be like 3 tables, all lined up like that. Does that make sense?
Let's see. Should back end go to that lounge over there?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say back end could probably if they want to hang out in the conference room over there. There's like a conference room that, so we can put the back end group in the back.
There's power.
Yeah. We can put the back end group in the back, and yeah.
Data and machine learning stays here.
And then we can have front end over here on these couches. So you guys,
Back end goes.
yeah. So we need to move this table. So
We need design.
I'm gonna help out.
Yeah.
You know, like bring it up.
Yeah. So if everyone can move their chairs out.
Okay.
One of these is move this table back and that table here.
Can we move that chair over? And then I think we're gonna need to get that other table too.
Oh, you're making a big, okay.
Yeah, we're gonna make a big square so everyone can sit around. Does that make sense?
I was trying to say, we should move this table to that one instead of that one to this one.
That was probably true, but you know, it's done is done. So if you guys want to just like grab a seat, pull it around. So this is gonna be the data machine learning. Hey! Front end. Front end? This is gonna be front end.
I'm gonna hang out with the front end.
And that's gonna be back end engineers. If you're front end, you can hang here with us. Front end. Front end in the front. Kind of. Front-ish. Sorry. I'm doing community. Wait till you see what we have going on that one. Just saying. Well, I'm just checking it out.
So this is good. This is progress. They get us split up a little bit.
Already, yeah. I think it's awesome. I think as time progresses too, like people are gonna start like, you know, kind of finding their place and their niche and maybe exploring other areas.
Well,
You know, I
yeah,
know some back end.
cross-pollination's gonna be a valuable thing as well.
Yeah, I think we need to get more front end.
We are, well,
and
there's two things,
designers.
the front end, the JavaScript thing, like that one woman very well pointed out, that there's a technical side to front end, which is speaker, there's another technical
Right,
track.
the
But then
engineering
there's
side.
those artist types, those are the
Yeah,
ones
there
that
is a
we're
blend
gonna
of both. I mean, I feel like
find.
it's a data visualization thing is,
Yeah,
there's a lot of people who are
that's
like front end engineers that do data visualization,
Yeah,
but they don't look at it
so-
as design.
yeah,
So
and it
it's
isn't really.
no,
they're not
I mean, unless you're
artists.
building like a dashboard.
I mean, someone technical can do visualization. Like most people that have written data visualization books
Yeah.
are engineers. Like they take on a little bit of art.
Even though I feel like having the design side of it, when you can actually like imagine how you're gonna like lay out the graphs and how the data is gonna look and all this stuff, I feel like that stuff, I'm telling you, man, that's an art.
I appreciate
Like I've seen some of that stuff, like when they do like animated data visualization and things like that. Oh my god. Yeah, like what did they build it with? It's actually one of the guys from your company. It was Ben Garvey.
Ben Garvey, yeah.
Dude, he did this animation. It was like a data visualization animation, on his family tree. Have you seen that? It was so cool. It was like things are like popping out, and he just like had, and it was like visually stimulating, and you understood exactly where things are going and what was happening. It actually looked like a bunch of cells growing. Like that's what.
Wow.
But because it was like things would pop up and they would split into two, right?
Yeah, right.
And things like that. So.
I guess the nice thing is you can do a lot of the other stuff without the front end. That's kind of a.
Yeah, I think
it can come
wait a
last,
little bit
but
anyways.
it's very important. But it can also come last. Like
I would
in the stages.
So
I just think that the whole design thing, though, the need for an artist who actually comes up with logos and.
I mean, like the logo would be nice, but like people get distracted. Most of the UI.
You know what, honestly,
like,
I know some designers. I think because this was tied into DataPhilly and everyone that followed DataPhilly are all data scientists or do analysis or like back-end engineering for like something.
They didn't know there was a front end.
Right, there's not that many front-end people, but we actually have a front-end event, but we have a JavaScript event on Thursday here.
Right.
And then we're hosting the UX UI event at the end of the month where my friend is speaking. So I'm sure that he gets involved.
Yeah, that might be a good time to introduce the project to that
Like he used to
group.
work for Google, doing with the human computer interaction stuff, and he's a professor. And I'm sure he probably knows a lot of people who are like interested in getting into it. And there's a lot of people honestly who are like designers or just engineers that are interested in going into data visualization. Like we have a friend here, you met him. He was we were chatting with him just like briefly. I was like, you should stay and get involved in this. But he's a front-end engineer.
Oh, you know about the guy I met?
Yeah, Abe, yeah. So he's a front-end engineer. He doesn't do data visualization. He's played around with D3 doing like some little bubble music thing. But I think that sometimes it's a good place for people to explore, especially if maybe that's the direction they want to take their career.
Oh yeah, that's a big reason.
So yeah, because
this project.
big data is like
kind of gives you a chance.
big data is big right now. No pun intended.
But I'm not going to do that at first because the other people should be having all those discussions that I can't contribute to.
Yeah.
But then eventually a lot of stuff's going to happen, and I'm going to have an opportunity.
Hey, I'm just chatting with the guys.
Because it's
Yeah, I'm
already
just chatting. Are you hanging for the back end?
I didn't see anyone.
Yeah, no, I think we're gonna hang
like
front end.
Front end.
Yeah, front end, but I was gonna sit together since it's like
It's not the size of big, like.
Yeah.
Both front and back, and they want to.
Well, it's complex.
I can do
Well, there's like
He can do it all.
That's true.
All right, guys.
Okay, so let's get started. Let's figure out whether our group is defined yet. Are you joining us? You stood up. You were the one that.
He's the front end. So are you guys doing front end stuff? Yeah. Awesome. I'm Corinne, by the way. Nice to meet you. What do you do, Cheng?
I actually.
I know